Have you noticed that it's becoming rarer and rarer for a band to occupy the mainstream, the headlines, the mass attention of any given genre? Well, nowadays it seems like most of the headlines and articles are filled with solo artists. Even if they have bands that are supporting them all the time, the name of the front person is typically the brand and name that everyone recognizes. So the question starts to arise if you're in a band right now, like I am, and you start to ask questions like, are bands dead? Are they obsolete? What is a band's role in the new music business with everything that we're seeing? Now, there's a reason for this state of bandhood, you could call it, out there in the music business. And some of it is the industry changing, sure, but there's also some of it that is internal, where it's leading to self-sabotage. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you sort of the old ways of looking at being in a band and what that whole gig was about, to how things have really evolved so that if you want to stand out, you want to be like one of those exceptional bands that gets attention from a mass audience, you got to do it the new way. And so that's what we're going to be covering in today's video. So stay locked in as we go deep now on bands and if they actually still have a place here in the music business. So the first thing that we need to look at is, what is the old definition? What is that old way of being in a band, which honestly, I got started in a band this way. I'm sure a lot of you out there, if you've been in a band for a long time or you've been in bands in the past, this is something that you can definitely resonate with, which is, it was a group of musicians only. Now, what I mean by that is, sure, there's sort of a truism in the music business that there's always like one person, bare minimum, that is sort of the business savvy person in the band. But back in the day, that was less and less incentivized, really, because there was infrastructure with the music industry to support musicians. So there wasn't this huge pool, this huge massive movement, kind of like there is now, to learn this stuff. It was just kind of like, we go in a room, we write some amazing songs, just find a place to play it, and then we'll get discovered and everything will kind of take care of itself, right? That was sort of the really old way of looking at things. But fundamentally, it was people whose prime skill was just being a musician. I mean, I remember when I started in my first band. I remember my first beer. No, I remember getting in my first band, and we get together in a room, and literally we were just trying to write together. By the way, I think that's one of the most formative things that you can do with your band is get together weekly, get together consistently, and write music. Don't just play covers and play other people's material. Write music. I remember when my band Kira started, there was this sort of role that we got on where we would write a song, and so the next rehearsal we'd practice the song. But at the end of the rehearsal, we'd write a new song. Like someone would have a riff and we would jam it and we would just see where it goes. And then the next practice was us splitting the time between that first song we learned and the second song we learned. But at the end of that practice, we would learn a third one. And then it would become split the time up between 3 songs. And we did that for about like 6 weeks until we had like 6 or 7 songs that we're working on at one time, because like, oh, we're writing this song and writing this song. And we were filming it so we could remember everything, obviously, because it was happening very fast. But that's what it used to be like, right? And that's all we had to focus on. And that was like, if I just focus on that, then the dream will come to me, right? Well, that also leads to the sort of second problem, is that that way of thinking and that sort of hopeful optimism, as beautiful and poetic as it can be, it's not very grounded in reality. It's very much grounded in like that Field of Dreams movie with Kevin Costner, where he's like, if you build it, they will come, right? If I just build something good enough, people will just come, right? And the problem word in there is just. If I just, if I build it, if I just build this thing, then they'll come, right? It's like, no, you definitely have to build it, and you have to build it well for them to even want to show up and look at your stuff. But just because you build it, you see how that's the issue. Don't just think in those kind of terms, oh, if I just do this. I call that Hail Mary thinking. I talk about it in my book, The Musician's Dilemma, in depth, but I won't go in depth with it here today. It's just that idea that, oh, I'm just going to throw Hail Marys until, someone discovers me. That's a lot of what the old method was. And so there was just this collective lack of business acumen, business education between the members of the bands. Because again, they didn't want to focus on business. I remember like what it was like. We used to think as artists that like business is what that's what our parents did. I don't want to do what my parents did. That's what the man, that's the man. I'm trying to fight the man. And so starting a business, that's like jumping into the corporate world, and I'm an artist, and all this stuff starts to come out, right? But business is as old as time. When the first two cavemen traded some cow meat for mastodon meat or whatever the hell, like business was taking place, commerce was taking place. What all this is a value exchange, by the way. But the problem is there's this conflicting thing inside of a lot of people that we've been sort of trained through movies and pop culture and this sort of narrative that we got to fight the man, we got to fight the corporations and do that, which there's some validity to be mad at those things for sure. But we didn't understand that, like, you can start a corporation, quote unquote. I'm saying that people are going to be like, oh, that sounds so dirty. Again, that's just programming. I'm just talking about the definitions of the words here. Like, you could just start your own corporation that does good things in the world. It's a neutral thing, so there are people that are going to be using it for evil and people that use it for good. So musicians, in my opinion, are the people that use this for good. If you don't think that your favorite artists and bands have LLCs and corporations, then you just don't know. They all do. They all do. Some of them have multiple LLCs where royalties from their live performance and paying out their roadies is in one LLC. So if anything happens and someone tries to sue, they can only take what comes from here and they don't have access to royalties, which is in a completely different LLC. So you have this protection and division of assets. Yeah, that stuff exists in like Metallica and all your favorite bands, and it's been in there for a long time, right? So the idea that we kind of get this muddied up old way of looking at things where we're like, it's the man. We got to fight the man, and I can't start a business because that's like becoming one of the men, That's a completely old way of looking at things, and it's never actually been true, right? It was just something that was sort of propped up from narrative and pop culture and different, things like that. Also, the man, quote unquote, that we all needed to be mad at was labels and managers. I'm just saying, at the time, just look up stories. You probably have seen enough of them if you've done any amount of research. Look at TLC, look at Prince, look at Britney Spears, look at Michael Jackson, look at Tupac. Like, just the stories go on and on and on and on and on. I could just keep going forever about like, oh, how the label screwed this artist over, how the label screwed this artist over, and it just goes in an infinite list, right? Because that was the real problem. But because we had a lack of business acumen and education, we were reliant on the industry. That was the issue. We were reliant on these people who did not have our best interests at heart. Okay? Amy Winehouse. That's all I'm going to say there. You have these people that are incentivized to use you as a product. And when they view you as the product, you become a commodity for somebody else. Now, it's one thing if you understand that as an artist, you kind of are a product in the eyes of the consumer, but you're in control of the product. You control how it's represented. You control what interviews it does, all that kind of stuff, right? Because it's yours. It's another thing when you're a puppet to somebody else who's got you under contract and put you in a bunch of debt and says, you got to do this so you can pay me back. Now you're a product for somebody else and you get treated as such. So we have to look at this as a big issue because a lot of musicians think, I'll just learn it on the fly. I'll just learn it on the fly. I'll just kind of pick up things here and there. That's the long way of doing things. Warren Buffett, one of the world's greatest investors, has this great quote, which is, I learn from mistakes. Absolutely. But there's no rule that says they have to be my mistakes, right? So you can learn from the mistakes of others so that you don't have to go learn it through trial and error. That's kind of the whole reason I started this YouTube channel, is I got punched in the face by the music business enough for every person watching this video times like 3, okay? So it's like, heed my warning, doing a little Land of the Lost there, sorry. But like, you have to look at this from a perspective of, you have to be independent, not dependent. If you get business education, you will become independent because you will become self-reliant and you will understand the systems you actually need to perfect. Doesn't mean you'll perfect them overnight, but once you figure out what systems to actually start putting your attention to, now you can start moving in the right direction. It's like being stuck in the Amazon forest and you're cutting through the forest fast, but you might just be cutting deeper into the forest, not getting anywhere closer to civilization. When you've got the right systems and you know what to focus on, then you can start moving towards the right things, but you still have to cut through the forest, right? So you still have to do the work, and it's still an incremental game, but at least you know you're moving in the right direction. But with what we're doing in the past, this old way of looking at things, of like, I'm not going to learn how to do social media marketing. I'm just going to sit on my hands and go, meh. I'm not going to learn how to do email marketing. I'm not going to learn how to do all this stuff, right? That kind of mindset is absolutely cancerous to what you're trying to do. So we have to look at, okay, if that's the old definition, right? People that are, stuck in the old ways of doing things, the old way of viewing business and not really understanding how it actually works, they're going to be stuck in that, right? And there's nothing we can do unless they make those changes into the new definition. So what is the new definition? This is Dax's definition, by the way. You will find this in the Daxton's dictionary next to the Webster's dictionary in the Dewey Decimal System. Just kidding. So what we have is a group of musicians who are musicians, good musicians, that have a desire to write and create something cool. But they all have dedicated roles. There's no more of this, I'm just a musician, throw my hands up and just like have this victimhood scarcity mindset, fixed mindset, like I can't learn a skill. It's like you learned an instrument, you have no excuse to say, I can't learn this is complicated. Do you know how many people I've taught instruments to where they're like, dude, this is crazy. And then you start playing your instrument, whether that's singing, guitar, whatever, and they're like, you learn that, you can learn this. Just saying, okay? Don't talk yourself down. So everyone needs to have dedicated roles. Now, not all roles will be as business intensive. You may find that there are certain members in your band whose best role is just creating things, right? So they're best in the songwriting spaces where they're at their house, writing things. But then when it comes to, like, let's say, social media, they lock up. Now, I give that leeway to most any member of the band except for one, which is the lead singer. If you're the lead singer, it's mandatory that you learn how to get good talking to the camera, being in front of a camera, doing the whole interest media, social media game, and figuring that out. You're the face of the band, straight up. The singer, whether the guitar player or the bass player, the drummer, likes it or not, the singer is the face of the band. And so they have to be the ones to get out in front of everybody. And the only other way that you get something else is when you have like, one person in the band builds a giant platform and then the band is known only through the association of that one member to this other thing. And that's just a weird fan dynamic. That's not really a fan dynamic where they're a fan of like the band. They're a fan of the dude and just kind of all this different stuff that he does, right? So that's not a great dynamic. So what I would imagine is more, like what you're dealing with right now, is you have people in your band that maybe just don't know what to do, and you just have to kind of show them what to do. So every music business has the one or two people that are driving the ship, right? It's got to be like two minimum if you're in a four-piece. The square root of any given creative domain, the square root will be responsible for 50% of the production. And so when you have four people, that law seems pretty obvious now. So you have two people of a four-piece minimum who need to be driving this business ship. And the other two members are not just, like cold potatoes and you put them in the corner. Like, you have to give them roles as well that serve the business, get them out of their comfort zone, but don't throw them into the fire. Like if, for example, your bass player is terrible at talking on the camera, don't force him to all of a sudden start talking on camera every single day, 7 days a week. That's just throwing someone into the fire. Saying, hey, do one of those videos once a week, once every other week. Build yourself in, get the confidence, but once you got the confidence, then start upping the volume, right? I'm a big fan of that. A lot of people like to just dive in, and if you're a diligent, person who can be very disciplined and you don't get distracted, you don't have hardcore ADHD like some people I know, you can just go, and it's good. But for a lot of people, it's like build into it, reward yourself for building into it, especially if you're on the ADHD, level. Gamify that process so that you reward yourself for completing milestones and tasks, because then it's a nice little dopamine kick, and then we'll want to keep getting the dopamine kicks of the rewards, and so we'll do the activities faster so we can get reward. Just a little fun little productivity hack for all my fellow people out there with brains that are super. I'm not going to call them special. I'm going to call them super. That's what I like to think. So we have to basically develop a collective business understanding. Sure, two of the members or one of the members is going to have the most business knowledge. But we need to get everybody a baseline of knowledge where they understand the game, they understand kind of what the purpose of it is and what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, you got to get everyone on that same page. So, and that kind of takes me into this sort of third part of this, which is like, how do you move forward from here? Okay, so you have to be able to identify the problems that are going to hold you back now in your band as you're trying to move into this new kind of model. Shout out to Brahms with my giant pink cup, by the way. So the first thing is, like I mentioned, you have to get everybody on the same page. If you have one member in a 3-piece or a 4-piece or a 5-piece, doesn't matter how big the band is, if you have one person in there who's like, I don't like that we post social media content, I just think it's cheesy. Meh. You have one person like that. You have one person that's like, I don't think we should try to enhance the live show. Let's just go out there, go by feel. Let's just not try to, make it, super choreographed. Just kind of go out and wing it, man. I don't like that you're trying to make it better. These are people with fixed, scarcity-based mindsets, okay? You have to either get them to see the light or they see the light of the front door that you just opened as you kick their ass out of the band. So those are the things that you need to get everyone on the same page. I'm just telling you, right? Like they either come into the fold or they don't. And you got to kind of be willing to cut cords with people. And it's sort of that higher, slow, fire, fast kind of things. You be particular about the people you bring into your project. And if they come in there and they're starting to, bring the energy down, poo-poo all the ideas that are like, hey, we should probably learn how to, set up our business and know how to attract fans and know how to sell things and, get our marketing down. And they're like, oh, let's just get in a room and jam and that'll solve all our problems. You start seeing these people, again, show them the light or show them the door. But either way, you got to get them out fast and get someone who's actually on the level, get them in quicker, okay? So you got to have everyone on the same page. And then the other thing too is you have to have regular meetings about business. My band, we kind of slack off on this, but we are able to do it once a year basically. And what we do is we'll do little business kind of talks, but it's never all 4 of us in the room at the same time until that one time a year, right? So it's like in the beginning of the year, like first week of January, we try to do it where it's like, all right, brand new year. Here's how the last year went. Here was the good things we did. Here's the bad things that we did that we need to change. And then for the next year, here's what we're trying to do. Here's the goals. Here's the plan. All right, everyone, go team. Let's go have some shots and then whatever, right? So we kind of make it a bit of an event, right? It's supposed to be a good hang session that starts off with a business meeting going into the hang session. And that just creates a cool environment where people will want to come do the business stuff as opposed to it being a chore, right? And then the last thing is if you're in that position, you're in a band and you're like, all right, I want to start moving this forward into the new direction. I want to get the right people in there, but I just kind of don't know what to do. And that's an understandable place to be in. Just because, you got the right mindset doesn't mean all of a sudden everything is fixed. So the next piece of advice I would have is get a system. Okay, you either build a system or you buy a system. Those are your 2 options, right? So I think one of the things that's really important is I have invested in my life in tons of books. I've got a stack of books over here on my desk. I've got my bookshelf over here to the right. I got a bookshelf in my bed. I'm always studying and reading, trying to get better at this sort of stuff so I can find the little systems that other people are doing that's working, and not just working in one particular industry, but working across industries and implement that into the music business and my own businesses. And it's really important to invest in yourself that way. So, and it could be courses. I've also invested in courses. I've also invested in personal mentorship. I've invested in all those educational things. And it's yielded in my life tenfold what I've had to invest in it. Seriously, I don't mean that as some kind of weird, hypey whatever thing. That's genuine if you just did the math. And you're like, oh, Dax invested $10,000 here and then made $20,000 here from that education. That's actual data, right? So that, for example, I invested $5,000 to get a real estate coach when I was 21. I didn't want to do the standard 9-to-5 thing, but I saw people in my family were making money and friends of family were making money in different areas of the real estate industry. So I got into the investing side, flipped a few houses, right? And the first couple ones that my mentor taught me yielded me $20,000. And I had to pay $5,000 to get the coaching now. That was my college money. That was money I saved up for college. And, like grandma is like, hey, I put together a little savings bond that grows $100 every year. Like all those things I put together and invested in this coaching, and then it yielded, 4x, I guess that is, or 4x what I had put into it. I was like, oh, that worked. And so then later on, I invested another 10K into my business, and then sure enough, it yielded like 30 back. And I was like, oh, I think there might be something to this, right? So I am I'm a big shortcut person, but I don't mean cut corners. I mean I like to be able to turn on a dime and get things done quickly, right? I don't like to procrastinate because I understand that time is actually more valuable than money. So it's worth me giving up $5,000 of my money if I know I can get 10 back, or if I know I can get 20 back in the long run. And so the point here is you have to get a system, right? So you're either going to build this system from the ground up. So I've seen a lot of different ways. Like if you don't have access to any systems or anything, you don't know what to do, it's either like build it yourself. You have more time than you have money. So just sacrifice that good old precious valuable time, and God bless you. I hope you build the systems, but I prefer to buy them. That's just my own personal thing. I'm not telling you to do anything I have not done multiple times over, okay? And that's the thing on this channel when I recommend any piece of advice. I don't tell you anything that I haven't done, haven't seen my clients do, or haven't like worked with hands-on in the music business. I use these like allegories too of other people in the music industry. Like, I've talked about Trent Reznor and Amanda Palmer and some other people who have done things in the past, but it's important to actually have, some belief in yourself that you can either build this system or that you can learn a system that somebody else has. So you have to have that belief that either way, no matter what position you're in, that you can do it. You can figure it out, okay? So hopefully this video gave you guys some value so that you understand really what more of the new role that being in a band plays in the music business. Because yes, there will still be that one person probably in the band who, depending on what style of music you play, you may have that one person who the project may be named after, or maybe that person has a persona, like an insignia or kind of whatever you want to call it. A pseudonym, that's the name. It's like a name that's not your name. I don't think Youngblood's name is actually Youngblood. Let's just put it that way, right? But he's sort of the face of it, and it's his project. So sure, there's solo projects where people have bands that are bought on, but there's also ways that you can engineer that if it's a good fit for your band, right? And so if that lead singer just has they tick all the boxes, from a quote unquote business industry perspective, don't be afraid to let them lead out front visually and aesthetically in the brand, but everyone's got their own roles in the business that makes everyone equally valuable. Because some people are afraid to do that kind of stuff because they think it will diminish the value of the other members of the band. When I think the value of the members of the band is in the songwriting they provide to the table, as well as the business acumen that they can use to help accelerate the growth of the band, okay? So as long as you got those two things covered, market and push the branding however you need to get attention on your product and your brand and everything so people know who you are, okay? So if you got some value from this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button, like button, notification bell, all that kind of good stuff so you can get notified when more cool content like this comes out. But also, if you want to have a chance to potentially use the system that I've been implementing with my clients to help them get results of extra $500 a month, $1,000 a month from their music business, then hit the link that's in the description to apply for a one-on-one coaching call. It's totally free just to see if it's a good fit, if I can actually help you. But if that's something you're interested in, click the link in the bio. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you on another video inside of Musicians Ignite. Take care.